Liam Neeson. What if the strongest man in the room wasn't the one who roared, but the one who survived in silence? This is the story of Liam Neeson, a man the world saw as unbreakable, but life proved otherwise. He lost, he broke, he bled in private, yet he kept standing. And in that quiet fight, he discovered a different kind of strength, one the world never applauds, but everyone needs. What if the loudest proof of strength is not the roar people see on the screen, but the quiet a man carries when no one is watching? Liam Neeson became famous for roles where he looks unbreakable, but his real life shows a different kind of strength. He did not rise because everything was easy. He rose because again and again, life tested him, and he chose to keep going. Behind his calm voice and powerful presence, there is a man who learned to live with pain, loss, and long periods of silence. His story is not about a hero who always wins. It is about a man who learned how to stand up after life pushed him down. The world knows him as the strong father from Taken, or the man who saved lives in Schindler's List. But the real strength came from personal battles that never made it to the screen. He faced poverty, heartbreak, rejection, grief, and physical pain that stayed with him for years, yet he continued to move forward. His journey shows that strength is not only about muscles, fame, or success. Real strength is when a person refuses to give up, even when no one is clapping. Liam learned to live with silence, and that silence shaped him more than applause ever could. It made him thoughtful, patient, and humble. He is a reminder that a person can be soft-spoken and still be powerful. He proves that a life can be shaken many times, and still nothing has to break inside. His story has many highs and many painful lows, but through it all he remained steady. He kept working, he kept loving, and he kept standing. That is why people connect with him, not because he is perfect, but because he is human. To understand the legend, we have to go back to the beginning, to a place far away from Hollywood lights, inside a cold three-room house that tried to shrink a boy's dreams. Before Liam ever learned a line for a film, he had already learned how to live with the sound of being poor, a silence that sits so deep inside that it becomes part of a person. He was born in 1952 inches, Northern Ireland, in a time when money was short for many families. The country was still recovering from hard years, and regular people struggled to hold on to dignity while life pushed them down. Liam grew up in a small gray house with 3 sisters and parents who worked constantly just to keep food on the table. The home had only a few rooms, and every space was shared. Privacy did not exist. If someone sighed, everyone heard it. If someone cried, the walls could not hide it. In that small house, he learned early that silence is sometimes louder than noise. His family was Roman Catholic, living in a mostly Protestant town. This created tension that children could feel even when they did not understand it. There were looks, comments, closed doors, and invisible lines that divided neighbors. Liam did not have the words for discrimination at that age, but he felt it. He understood that his family was seen as different, and being different made life even harder. His father worked as a caretaker in a local school, sweeping floors and fixing things. His mother worked in kitchens and cleaned for other families. They were honest people who believed in hard work, but hard work did not always protect them from worry. Liam watched his parents count coins, stretch food, and stay quiet about their struggles. He saw tiredness in their eyes, and he learned that poverty can make people silent, not because they have nothing to say, but because they are too exhausted to speak. In that environment, Liam became a quiet child. He listened more than he talked. He learned to stay out of trouble, to avoid drawing attention, and to keep his feelings inside. But there was one place where this silence softened. His Aunt Molly's kitchen became his refuge, a place where he found warmth, laughter, and simple kindness. She treated him with gentle attention, offering food, comfort, and a sense of safety he did not always feel at home. In her kitchen, he could breathe without fear of saying the wrong thing. He never forgot that feeling, and later in life, he would speak of her with deep affection. Still, most of his childhood was marked by quiet, cold mornings and long seasons of worry. He slept in a narrow space, often waking to the sound of wind, rain, and his own thoughts. He knew the taste of hardship before he ever knew success. He also knew the fear of being judged, not for who he was as a person, but for his background and beliefs. Growing up Catholic in a Protestant town taught him to stay alert and keep his head down. All these experiences shaped his personality. They made him serious, observant, and older than his age. They also planted a silent strength inside him, the kind that does not break easily. But while silence taught him control, his father feared that too much quiet might bury the boy's voice completely. A time was coming when his father would push him towards something louder, rougher, and more demanding than anything he had known before. Poverty had shaped him, but a single decision would soon push him into a hall filled with ropes, fists, and shouting. A father's fear can sound louder than hunger, loud enough to ring a bell in a boxing hall. Some defeats do not leave blood. They switch off the room inside your head and dare you to find the light again. Liam was only 9 when his father sent him to the church boxing club, hoping the boy would learn confidence and discipline. The hall smelled of sweat and effort, and the boys who trained there were louder and tougher than Liam ever felt. At first, he was afraid, but he kept showing up. Step by step, he learned how to stand, how to defend, and how to strike. Boxing did not make him talk more, but it did give him a place where silence did not make him weak. He trained for years, pushing himself through pain, bruises, and early morning drills. Slowly, he became strong, fast, and focused. With time, the shy boy from a quiet house became a local youth champion. He won several matches and earned respect from other boys who once ignored him. For the first time, he felt that he belonged somewhere. The applause was small, but it mattered to him. Boxing taught him about pressure, self-control, and facing people who wanted to break him. Still, winning in the ring did not change the silence at home or the weight in his heart. By age 14, Liam was tall, confident in the ring, and known as a serious competitor. He fought to prove to himself that he was not invisible. Match after match, he learned how to stay calm, even when fear tried to take over. But then came the fight that ended everything. Under the lights of a youth tournament, he stepped into the ring, expecting another long, hard match. Instead, he received a clean hit he never saw coming. In one sudden moment, his head snapped back and the world disappeared. He could not hear the crowd, could not feel the floor, and could not understand what had happened. There was no dramatic fall, no long scream, just a silent collapse inside his mind. He later said that it felt like his brain had simply shut down. When sound returned, it came in a confusing rush that frightened him more than the punch itself. That moment changed him. The fear of losing control stayed with him. He realized that no trophy was worth risking his health or his future. So, without speeches, without applause, and without farewell, he walked away from boxing. No celebration, no clapping, just a quiet exit. His father was disappointed, but his mother was relieved. Liam himself felt mixed emotions. Boxing had given him confidence, but it had also shown him how quickly everything could be taken away. He learned that strength is not only about standing in a ring. Sometimes strength is knowing when to stop. With boxing behind him, he returned to his quiet routines, unsure of what would come next. He knew only that he did not want to live his life being hit in the head to prove his worth. What he did not know was that another path was waiting for him, one that would still require courage and discipline, but in a very different kind of arena. When the bell stopped, another stage was waiting for him, covered in sawdust instead of canvas. He didn't break in. He brushed in, one broom at a time, until the stage slowly began to notice him. After leaving boxing behind, Liam focused on surviving and finding direction. He worked different jobs to support himself while still trying to figure out who he wanted to become. In his early 20s, he found a small opportunity at the Lyric Players Theatre in Belfast. At first, he was not hired as an actor. He was hired to sweep the stage, move props, and clean up when rehearsals were finished. The work was simple and the pay was low, but the stage felt different from every other place he had known. Even as a stagehand, he felt connected to something larger than himself. Night after night, he swept the floor and watched real actors rehearse their lines. He listened, learned, and slowly imagined himself up there with them. One day, he was offered a tiny part with only 2 lines. It was not a big moment for others, but it was life-changing for him. Speaking even 2 lines on a stage gave him a feeling of purpose that years of fighting and labor never gave. That moment told him he belonged in storytelling. From that point on, he decided he would try to make acting his life, even though he had no guarantees and no connections. But choosing this path came with a cost. He worked long days driving lorries, carrying heavy loads, and doing physical labor to pay rent. At night, he stayed at the theater, rehearsing or watching performances. Money was always tight. Sometimes he lived in small rooms without heat, wearing layers of clothing just to sleep. He ate cheap meals, often the same food every day, and counted coins before buying anything. When he later moved to Dublin and then to London to chase acting work, the struggle became even harder. He lived in shared flats, old buildings, and sometimes places that barely felt like homes. The cold rooms, empty cupboards, and unpaid bills followed him everywhere. Yet, he never walked away from acting. The stage gave him something hunger could not take a reason to continue. He kept auditioning, even when he heard no again and again. He accepted small roles, background roles, and any chance to speak or learn. Each small opportunity gave him experience. Each rejection forced him to grow thicker skin. Acting was not giving him comfort, but it was giving him identity. He believed that if he worked hard and stayed patient, something would eventually change. Looking back, he often said that those years shaped him. Poverty taught him discipline, the stage taught him expression, and silence taught him how to listen, which later became one of his strongest skills as an actor. He learned that success is not only about talent, it is also about endurance. He stayed committed long before the world knew his name. But as he soon discovered, theater was only one part of the journey. The stage had warmth and forgiveness. Film did not. The camera would demand more from him than any live audience ever had. And once he stepped in front of it, he would learn that the real tests patience, confidence, and spirit in ways that poverty never could. When the world tells you that you are too much, sometimes the only way to win is to speak softer and make them lean in. After moving into the world of film, Liam found that breaking into movies was even tougher than theater. He earned small roles, usually as a soldier, a guard, or a supporting character with only a few lines. Casting directors often told him he looked too intense, or that his presence was too serious for lighter roles. Some said his voice was too heavy. Others said he was too Irish for what they wanted. The labels came quickly, and the opportunities came slowly. Still, he refused to quit. He believed that even if the world did not see his value yet, it would one day. During this period, money was still a problem. To survive, he recorded radio ads and voice work late at night. He would spend his days chasing acting jobs and his nights in small recording booths, reading scripts for products he could not afford. The pay was small, but it kept him fed and kept him close to the work he wanted. While others slept, he stayed awake, working on his voice and learning how to control his tone, breath, and rhythm. These late nights unknowingly trained one of his greatest skills, his voice. Rejection became a normal part of his life. Instead of throwing away rejection letters, he kept many of them. He said they reminded him that he was trying and that he was still in the fight. Each no pushed him to improve. He studied other actors, not to copy them, but to understand silence, timing, and expression. He slowly realized that sometimes the strongest acting is not loud or dramatic. Sometimes the most powerful moment is a quiet one. He learned how to hold still on camera, how to let his eyes speak, and how to express feeling without big movements. This became a key part of his craft-controlled emotion instead of forced emotion. Even though progress felt slow, he continued to grow. The small parts helped him gain confidence in front of the camera, and the long waits between roles taught him patience. He was not becoming a star, but he was becoming a better actor. He trusted that if he stayed committed, the right opportunity would arrive, and eventually it did. A director was searching for someone who could show both charm and deep sorrow at the same time. Someone who could be strong, yet carry sadness in his eyes. That director looked past the labels and saw what the no's had missed. He became immortal on screen by carrying the pain of 1,000 souls, and he later learned that immortality can feel very human once the cameras stop. In the early 1990 seconds, Liam was still seen as a respected actor, but not yet a worldwide name. That changed when Steven Spielberg was searching for someone to play Oscar Schindler in Schindler's List. Spielberg needed a man who could show charm, leadership, guilt, and quiet sadness all at once. When he saw Liam's work, he noticed those qualities in his eyes. Liam was offered the role, and he accepted it, not fully knowing how deeply it would affect him. To play Oscar Schindler, Liam had to step into the mindset of a man who saved more than 1,000 Jewish lives during the Holocaust. The role was heavy, emotional, and painful because it was based on real history and real suffering. Liam spent months studying Schindler's life, understanding his flaws, his regrets, and his bravery. During filming, he carried the weight of the character every day. He later said that some scenes were so intense that it took a toll on his spirit. The story was dark, and acting in it required him to stay in that dark space for a long time. When filming ended each day, he did not walk away feeling light. The emotions stayed with him, and he often spent nights alone in silence, trying to process what he had just performed. When Schindler's List was released in 1993, it became one of the most important films in modern history. It won 7 Academy Awards, including Best Picture and Best Director. Liam received an Oscar nomination for Best Actor and worldwide praise for his performance. Overnight, he went from being a known actor to a global figure. People around the world connected his face with strength, compassion, and moral courage. The film changed his career forever and placed him among the most respected actors in Hollywood. But success brought its own challenges. Fame is loud, but it can make a person feel even more alone. After Schindler's List, Liam experienced this contrast. On the outside, people saw a man at the peak of his career. On the inside, he felt a quiet distance from the world. The emotional burden of the film did not disappear quickly, and the attention that followed sometimes made him withdraw even more. He once said that fame does not solve personal struggles, it only highlights them. Instead of feeling celebrated, he sometimes felt exposed. Being praised for playing a hero did not make his real life easier. It made him think more about who he was and who he wanted to be. The Hollywood spotlight also brought pressure. After such a powerful performance, people expected him to deliver greatness again and again. Every script, every role, every interview came with new expectations. He stayed professional and kept working, but like many actors who reach sudden global fame, he had to adjust to a new kind of life. Public attention followed him everywhere, and privacy became limited. He enjoyed meaningful work, but he missed ordinary peace. This period taught him that success has a price, and the price is often silence in a crowded world. Still, Schindler's List gave him something that no award can measure: purpose. He met survivors, families, and communities who thanked him for honoring their history. That responsibility stayed with him. It humbled him and reminded him that acting is not only about entertainment. It can also be about memory, truth, and empathy. The film lifted his career, but it also deepened his understanding of human pain and human strength. With new fame and new opportunities ahead, Liam stepped into the next chapters of his life with a different heart, wiser, more grounded, and aware of how fragile everything can be. Success had opened a door for him, but success alone could not fill the empty spaces within. If success is the key, love is the door. And in the years to come, that door would open, close, and open again, teaching him different forms of love and different forms of loss. She didn't polish a star. She showed a shy man how to stand under the light without flinching. When Liam met Helen Mirren on the set of Excalibur in 1981, he was still early in his career, unsure of himself, and learning how to fit into an industry that often made him feel small. Helen was already a confident and admired actress, known for her talent and bold personality. She carried herself with ease, and Liam admired how she moved through rooms without fear or self-doubt. They worked together, spent long hours on set, and soon formed a deep connection that grew into a relationship. For the next 4 years, they lived together and built a small world of their own. Their time as a couple became one of Liam's most important emotional chapters. Helen was older, experienced, and more comfortable in the spotlight. Liam, on the other hand, was still learning who he was as an actor and as a man in public life. She helped him gain confidence, not by pushing him, but by supporting him. She encouraged him to believe that he had a place in the industry. He later said that she taught him about self-respect, style, and how to carry himself with pride instead of insecurity. During these years, Liam learned how to walk into events, interviews, and social gatherings with his head high instead of down. Helen helped him understand that talent means nothing if a person does not allow themselves to be seen. She showed him how to belong without apologizing for his background or his quiet nature. Their home together was simple and warm. They shared meals, laughter, and long talks about work, life, and dreams. She supported his growth and gave him space to become more sure of himself. But their relationship was not free from challenges. As Liam slowly began getting more attention in the industry, rumors started to form. Some people said he depended on Helen's fame, and others claimed she overshadowed him. These whispers affected him more than he liked to admit. His pride was hurt, and he began to worry that people did not see him as his own person. Over time, the pressure from the outside world created distance between them. There was no dramatic fight or betrayal. The relationship simply reached a point where both of them knew it could not continue. Their ending was quiet and respectful. Helen later said she loved him deeply, but understood that they were not meant to stay together. Liam carried no anger toward her. Instead, he remembered the relationship as something that helped shape him. She gave him confidence, dignity, and belief in himself, gifts that would help him for the rest of his life. When their 4 years together came to a close, Liam walked forward with more strength than he had when he walked in. The chapter with Helen ended, but it left him better, wiser, and more open to life. And soon, another chapter was waiting, one filled with laughter, energy, and a new beginning that felt like summer warming a cold room. Some loves do not promise forever. They simply return your ability to feel, and then they leave before the credits roll. Liam met Julia Roberts in the late 1980 seconds while working on a film. She was young, full of energy, and at the beginning of a fast-rising career. He was older, quieter, and still healing from past hurt. Their connection grew naturally, without plans or pressure. They enjoyed each other's company, shared jokes, and spent time together away from cameras. The age difference never mattered to them in private. What they shared was a warm chapter, not a long one. Their relationship was not built on grand moments. It was made of simple, ordinary days. They took walks, had dinners, and talked about work, life, and dreams. Julia's laughter brought lightness into Liam's life, and he gave her stability and calm in return. He liked her honesty and free spirit. She liked his maturity and gentle nature. The time they spent together helped Liam soften after years of emotional weight. He later looked back on those days with gratitude because they reminded him that joy could return after pain. But Hollywood moves at different speeds for different people. Julia's career began to rise quickly, and she became one of the most talked-about actresses of her generation. Her schedule filled with new films, press events, and constant travel. Liam's path moved at a slower pace, with different goals and a different rhythm. There was no anger and no dramatic ending. Life simply pulled them in separate directions. They cared for each other, but neither wanted to hold the other back. When they parted, it was with respect and kindness. They did not blame each other. They understood that some relationships are not meant to last forever, but they can still be meaningful. Julia later spoke warmly of Liam, calling him one of the kindest men she had known. Liam also remembered her with appreciation, thankful for a brief season that brought light into his life. Their story ended gently, without bitterness. And although that chapter closed, Liam carried its warmth forward. The next time love arrived, it would not be a short season or a passing summer. It would be a compass one that would guide his life, and one that fate would also take its highest price from. For a man raised by silence, the sound of a family is a miracle you learn not to take for granted. Liam met Natasha Richardson in 1993 when they worked together on the Broadway play Anna Christie. From the first rehearsals, there was a natural connection between them. They understood each other's timing, reactions, and emotions without needing long explanations. Their on-stage chemistry soon grew into a real relationship off-stage. Natasha, it was warm, grounded, and full of life. Liam was calm, steady, and quietly intense. Together, they formed a balance that felt safe and honest. Their relationship moved forward with clarity, not confusion. In 1994, they married in New York, choosing a simple and meaningful ceremony. For Liam, it was the first time he truly felt that he had a home, not just a place to sleep. With Natasha, he found comfort and belonging. He no longer felt like an outsider. Being with her softened him and brought out a warmer side that few people had seen before. Soon, their family grew. They welcomed 2 sons, Michal in 1995 and Daniel in 1996. Becoming a father changed Liam more than fame ever did. He loved holding his sons, feeding them, and reading to them. He helped with small tasks and learned how to laugh at himself. Parenthood made him more patient and more aware of what truly matters. The house they built together was full of everyday noise. Children running, toys on the floor, and cartoons in the background. For Liam, these ordinary sounds felt like blessings. Their life was not about luxury or red carpets. It was about small, imperfect moments that made a family. Natasha baked lopsided birthday cakes that leaned to one side. Liam built a wooden swing in the backyard that never hung straight, no matter how many times he adjusted it. They joked about it, and the children loved it anyway. There were family dinners, school runs, messy rooms, and quiet evenings by the fireplace. They protected their private life, choosing normal moments over constant publicity. Natasha became Liam's anchor. She reminded him to slow down, to enjoy breakfast with the kids, to stay present instead of living only through work. He admired her kindness and her ability to make their house feel warm, no matter where they lived. She understood his silences and never tried to force him to be someone he was not. In return, he supported her work and respected her independence. They made decisions together and built a partnership based on trust, humor, and loyalty. As the years passed, Liam often said that Natasha gave him something he never had growing up: peace. Their home in Millbrook, New York, became their sanctuary. They planted trees, decorated rooms slowly, and made memories without needing applause. Even though both were actors, they left their characters at work. At home, they were simply husband and wife, mother and father. The happiness they shared did not mean life was perfect. There were arguments, tiring days, and moments of stress, just like any family. But nothing ever felt bigger than their commitment to each other. Liam enjoyed being a husband and a father more than being a movie star. He once said that the best sound in the world was hearing his family laugh in the next room. Those years gave him stability, joy, and a sense of purpose. He no longer felt alone in the world. He had a partner who stood beside him, and children who ran into his arms when he came home from filming. For a boy who grew up in a small, cold house, this warm, busy family life felt like a gift he never believed he could have. But life can change in an instant. Just when everything seemed secure and complete, fate prepared its hardest lesson. It began on a bright day that looked harmless, the kind of day no one would ever fear. A day that seemed safe, full of light, and untouched by darkness. Then came a day so bright, it looked immune to sorrow, the kind of day that teaches you otherwise. Heroes can fight wolves in fiction, but in real life, the enemy is a quiet hospital room that refuses to give back the person you love. In March 2009, Natasha went skiing near Montreal. It was not a dangerous event, and she was not performing any risky moves. She fell, laughed it off, and even told people she felt fine. No one imagined that a simple fall would turn into a nightmare. Hours later, she developed a severe headache. The situation changed suddenly, and she was rushed to the hospital. Liam was in Toronto shooting a film when he got the call. He immediately stopped working and traveled to be with her. The hospital corridors were filled with tension and fear. When he arrived, doctors explained that she had suffered a serious brain injury and that the damage was irreversible. He listened, but his heart was not ready to accept what he was hearing. He went into her room, hoping for some sign, any reaction, any movement. Natasha lay there peacefully, as if in a deep sleep. There were no visible injuries, no signs of pain, which made the truth even harder to accept. Liam held her hand, spoke to her softly, and told her that he was there. He later shared that he whispered to her that she would not come back from this. It was the most painful moment of his life, but he wanted to be honest, even in goodbye. Their final time together was quiet and tender. There were no long speeches. There was love, disbelief, and the helplessness of a man who would have given anything to change the moment. Natasha had previously shared with Liam her wish regarding life support. She did not want to stay on machines if her brain could no longer function. Respecting her wish, the family made the painful decision to remove life support. Before doing so, Liam informed her loved ones, and he stayed by her side, holding her hand until the very end. When the machines stopped, there was no dramatic sound. Just silence. A silence so heavy that it filled his life in a way no applause, no award, and no role ever could. Natasha's organs were donated, saving the lives of 3 people. Even in death, she continued to help others. Liam later said that this decision gave him a small sense of peace, because it was something she would have wanted. But donation did not remove the pain. It only gave meaning to a tragedy that otherwise made no sense. After she passed, Liam walked out of the hospital carrying a grief that had no shape and no end. Reporters, cameras, and public reactions surrounded the news, but none of that touched the private reality he faced. He had lost his wife, his partner, and the mother of his children. At home, everything reminded him of her voice, her laughter, her belongings, even the empty chair at the table. The house that once felt warm now felt painfully quiet. Liam later said that the hardest part was not the day she died, but the days after, when daily life continued. But she was no longer there. Grief did not arrive as one storm. It arrived again and again, in waves, in memories, in small moments that caught him off guard. He still had to be a father, still had to guide his two young sons, and still had to find a way to move forward. People called him strong, but he did not feel strong. He felt numb. The silence after loss is not the same as the silence of childhood or the silence of poverty. This silence had weight. It followed him into every room, every thought, every night. Yet even in that silence, he made a choice. He would keep going, not because he was ready, but because stopping would break him even more. When grief moved in, he did the only thing he knew how to do. He kept moving. Audiences saw vengeance, but he was really acting opposite an invisible partner named absence. After Natasha's death, Liam could not sit still. The silence in the house was too heavy, and the memories were too sharp. He chose the only escape he understood: work. In 2009, the same year he faced his greatest personal loss, his film, Taken, unexpectedly became a global hit. It was originally meant to be a modest action movie, but it turned into a worldwide phenomenon. Audiences connected deeply with the character of a father who would do anything to protect his child. People saw strength, power, and determination in his performance. What they did not see was the real pain behind the role. The grief he carried gave the character a level of raw emotion he never planned. The anger, the worry, the desperate love in his eyes, much of it came from a place inside him that was still broken. With Taken, Liam suddenly became a new kind of star. He was no longer only known for dramatic or historical roles. Now he was seen as a global action icon, a symbol of endurance and resilience. The success brought more action scripts, and he accepted many of them. Films like Unknown, Nonstop, The Grey, and Run All Night kept him constantly moving from country to country, set to set, and hotel to hotel. The long schedules and physical demands were exhausting, but they also kept his mind occupied. As long as he was working, he did not have to sit alone with his thoughts. For audiences, he became the face of tough, unbreakable characters. For Liam, these roles were something else entirely. They were a shield. The work never really slowed. Studios saw that action films with Liam Neeson were successful, and they wanted more. He found himself on airplanes more than at home, memorizing new scripts, training for fights, and pushing through long shooting days. He accepted the pace because stopping felt dangerous. Resting meant remembering, and he was not ready to face that. He once admitted that he kept working to avoid breaking down. The world cheered his strength on screen, unaware that he was using fiction to hold himself together. The more roles he took, the stronger his action image became. Viewers believed he was fearless, unstoppable, and hardened. But the truth was quieter. He was simply trying to keep going, one film at a time. He gave everything to the work. Some people around him worried about the pace, but Liam held on to his schedule like a lifeline. He still cared about his craft, but he also needed distraction. Acting, which had once been his passion, temporarily became his medicine. As the years passed, he continued to carry the weight of grief. Tucked behind long days and controlled expressions, the world saw success. He felt survival. The roles helped him process emotions he could not speak about openly. Through characters, he released fear, anger, and sorrow without having to explain himself. Work became his anesthesia, numbing the parts of life that hurt the most. But no matter how much work a person does, the body keeps its own record, and in time, it begins to speak. For Liam, the next challenge did not come from scripts, critics, or audiences. It came from the one opponent no one can avoid. Gravity always collects its debts. You can't outact a fracture or improvise against lactic acid, and sometimes the bravest choice a person can make is restraint. Years before his great losses, Liam had already learned how unforgiving the body can be. In 2000, He was in a serious motorcycle accident that shattered his pelvis and left him in intense pain. Doctors were unsure how fully he would recover, and the process was long, slow, and exhausting. Even after healing enough to walk and work, the pain never completely disappeared. It became a part of his daily life, a reminder that even strong men are still made of flesh and bone. As he got older, the pain increased, especially with the demanding action roles he continued to take. Long shoots, running scenes, falls, and stunts pushed his body harder than it wanted to go. He also began to experience severe leg cramps, which often struck in the middle of the night. They were strong enough to wake him from sleep and make it difficult to stand. Doctors told him the cramps were linked to lactic acid buildup, years of physical strain, and too much caffeine. Liam loved coffee, but he eventually gave it up to reduce the pain. It was a small decision, but it showed how much he was willing to change just to keep functioning. There was also a period, especially after Natasha's death, when he drank more than he should have. The bottle became a temporary way to numb the noise in his mind and ease the weight on his chest. But he eventually realized that alcohol was not helping him heal. He was only delaying the pain and risking the stability he needed for his children and his work. One day, he chose to stop. He did it quietly, without public statements or drama. He stopped because he wanted to be present, especially for his sons. He did not want to lose himself to grief or habit. Aging forced him to accept limits he once ignored. His body could no longer do everything it once did, and he learned to say no to certain stunts and schedules. He began focusing more on health, rest, stretching, and discipline. Instead of fighting his body, he started listening to it. Pain taught him humility. It reminded him that strength is not only about pushing forward. Sometimes it is about stopping, adjusting, and protecting what remains. These lessons shaped him once again, but the next lessons in his life would not come from pain. They would come from being a father, and they would require a quieter and deeper kind of courage. Grief can divide a house unless someone keeps opening the same door every day and calling it home. After Natasha passed, Liam focused on one purpose only: being a father. His sons were still young, and he knew they needed stability more than anything. He became very private about his family life, protecting his boys from the media and keeping their routines as normal as possible. He did not want them to grow up in headlines. He wanted them to grow up in a home. Without their mother, everyday life could have easily fallen apart. So, Liam created small rituals to hold the family together. They ate dinner at the table, no matter how simple the meal was. They talked, even when it was difficult. They celebrated birthdays, holidays, and milestones without skipping them, because he believed that routine helps heal what the heart cannot fix overnight. He reminded his sons often that their mother loved them and would always be a part of their lives. Liam also worked to help his sons shape their own identities. He did not push them toward acting or fame. Instead, he encouraged them to explore their interests and find what made them feel alive. When his older son, Michal, struggled with grief and later chose to honor his mother by taking her last name, Richardson, Liam supported the decision. He said it was a beautiful tribute. He wanted his sons to remember that honoring their mother was not about being sad forever, but about living in a way she would be proud of. Some days were heavy, and some nights were painfully quiet. But Liam stayed consistent. He tried to be both present and patient. He listened more. He talked when needed. He showed his sons that men can feel pain without running from it. He guided them through school events, holidays, and family trips. Not perfectly, but honestly. What kept their home standing were the small things: watching movies together, visiting places Natasha loved, and keeping photos and memories alive without letting grief take over every conversation. He understood that healing does not mean forgetting, it means remembering with balance. Through fatherhood, Liam found a reason to wake up, work, and move forward. His sons gave him a purpose larger than career or fame. He once said that his greatest role was being a dad, not being an actor. After loss, he became even more protective of his time and his values. He wanted to raise good men, not public figures, and beyond home, there was still a life he needed to live without spectacle, but with standards. Not all legends need yachts. Some are content to own their calendar and their conscience. After years in the spotlight, Liam chose a life that was calm, private, and simple. He never chased flashy lifestyles, expensive collections, or constant media attention. He preferred staying at home, spending time with close friends and family, and living at a pace he could control. Fame gave him money, but he never let it change his basic values. He stayed respectful, humble, and careful about how he presented himself to the Stanspolitan world. Liam has always believed that privacy is not a luxury, but a boundary. He attends events when necessary, promotes his films, and shows respect to fans. But he does not allow the public into every corner of his life. He keeps most of his personal moments away from cameras. He does not get involved in unnecessary controversies, public fights, or attention-seeking behavior. His presence in interviews and appearances is measured and thoughtful. He speaks when he has something real to say, not just to stay visible. Another quiet part of his life is his humanitarian work. Over the years, Liam has supported causes related to children, education, human rights, and disaster relief. He has worked with organizations such as UNICEF and Amnesty International, and he has lent his voice and time to campaigns that protect vulnerable people around the world. He does these things without turning them into publicity stories. He believes that helping others is a responsibility, not a brand. His generosity is steady, not loud. Integrity has guided many of his choices. Liam avoids work that goes against his principles. He has turned down roles that felt disrespectful or meaningless. He is also known for treating people with kindness on set, from directors to assistants to camera crew. Many co-workers describe him as a man who arrives on time, does the work, and never behaves as if he is above anyone else. He chooses honesty and respect over headlines and hype. As he grew older, he also became more selective about his projects. He stopped running after non-stop fame and started focusing on peace, routine, and meaningful time with loved ones. His life became less about proving himself and more about living in a way he could be proud of. He protects his mental space, his family, his health, and his time because he knows how easily life can change. This quieter chapter raises a simple question. After all, the success, loss, and survival, what comes next for a man who has already lived so many lives? So where does a man go when the spotlight softens and the winter stretches long? Endurance is not about sprinting forever. It is about learning how to walk well with what you cannot put down. Today, Liam lives a life shaped by routine, peace, and steady purpose. He wakes up early, enjoys quiet mornings, and chooses a slower rhythm than the one he lived during his busiest years. He spends time walking, stretching, and taking care of his body so it can carry him through the years ahead. He still accepts work, but only projects that feel meaningful or fulfilling. He no longer tries to prove anything to the world. Instead, he focuses on doing what he enjoys and what he can be proud of. Liam also makes time for family and close friends. He keeps his circle small and chooses relationships that are sincere. He prefers dinners at home over crowded events and conversations with loved ones over loud gatherings. The noise of fame no longer interests him. What matters to him now is presence, not attention. One part of his routine that has never faded is remembering Natasha. Each year, he visits her resting place, bringing flowers, clearing the snow or leaves, and speaking to her in quiet moments. He tells her about their sons, about work, about life. This ritual keeps her close, not as a source of pain, but as a source of love that continues in a different form. He has learned to accept that memory can be a companion, not just a wound. Living with loss has made him gentler. He is patient with others and kinder to himself. He understands that everyone carries something, even if they hide it behind smiles or strong faces. He has learned to listen more, judge less, and appreciate ordinary days. He enjoys simple things: a peaceful walk, a warm drink, a good script, or a quiet evening at home. These are the moments that give his life balance. Professionally, he continues to work, but at a controlled pace. He chooses roles that match his age, his energy, and his values. He is not chasing youth or trying to repeat past successes. He accepts where he is in life and respects the process of growing older. With time, he has discovered that dignity is worth more than spotlight. Liam's endurance now looks different from before. It is no longer about pushing through pain or running from grief. It is about living with steadiness, gratitude, and self-respect. He stands as a reminder that a person can survive great loss and still choose kindness, still choose love, and still choose life. Before we close, there is one question every viewer has been carrying since the first frame. If this story stayed with you, it is because it is not only his story. In many ways, it is yours in disguise. From the beginning, we saw that Liam's life was not built on being unbreakable. It was built on learning how to bend without falling apart. He showed that strength is not always loud, and it is not always seen. Sometimes it lives in silence, in patience, and in the decision to wake up again after life has taken something you never thought you could live without. His journey circles back to one truth. Real endurance is not measured by applause, money, or fame. It is measured by how a person carries love, pain, and responsibility at the same time. He learned that grief does not disappear, but it can be lived with. He learned that success can open doors, but love is what makes a home. He learned that silence is not the enemy when you fill it with purpose instead of fear. And through all of it, he never stopped moving forward, even when moving forward hurt. What we can take from his story is simple. You do not have to be loud to be strong. You do not have to hide your pain to be worthy. You do not have to break to prove that you feel. Each person has their own battles, their own losses, and their own quiet nights where they wonder how to keep going. But like Liam, you can still stand. You can still choose kindness. You can still protect the people you love. And you can still write new chapters, even after the hardest ones. Maybe your strength is not visible to the world, but it matters. Maybe your victories are small, but they count. Maybe your resilience is silent, but it is real. If his story touched you, let it remind you of your own quiet victories, the ones no one sees but still shape who you are. The credits are near, but one question remains, and only you can answer it. When the credits roll, what quiet strength will you choose to carry out of this room?